We are Be Well Health and Wellness Consultants, and we're inviting you into our toughest and most honest conversations with each other.
We believe in honest, educated, science-based health promotion and that everyone should have access to this kind of information.
Tune in to hear our hearts for you as we uncover the not-so-pretty side of the health and wellness industry on the Healthy is Hard podcast. All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Healthy is Hard podcast. We are so excited that you are here with us today. We will be discussing something that is a bit new to me on this latter end here. Today, we're going to talk about muscle wasting versus atrophy and hypertrophy. So the atrophy hypertrophy thing is totally Tony's specialty. So you'll hear a lot from him this evening, but I do have a couple of notes on the nutrition end for some big misconceptions about protein, because that's really what we talk about when we are talking about this idea of building muscle, wasting muscle, the whole shebang. So this actually was an episode, this was Tony's idea, so I'm going to let him take it away and start us off with the good, juicy details.
Yeah. So I remember back from a previous episode that we did, we were talking about the cardio. And in that episode, I mentioned that running is a great way to burn fat and is not going to burn muscle. So when I'm going to take off from there is there's a big difference between losing muscle out of nowhere versus your body needing to use it as fuel. Now, what the difference between atrophy and hypertrophy is, the actual term and definition for atrophy is shrinkage of a cell, and hypertrophy is the opposite, which is growth of a cell. But in the fitness world, we just look at it as losing muscle and gaining muscle. Simple as that. Now, with your side of muscle wasting and the nutrition, there's a lot of role playing with the protein and how much you should intake and how much your body needs to grow. And when it comes to working out, there's different styles of exercise that can enhance that hypertrophy and that can counter up with atrophy. So let's start with atrophy. So shrinkage of a cell or losing muscle, quote unquote, for the fitness industry.
And for you all listening, I'm taking notes right alongside you, just so you know.
I hear a lot when I was working in commercial gyms, I don't want to lose muscle, so I'm not going to run. Well, I told you that in previous, I've lost over 105 pounds. I've been through the weight loss and I've been through the hypertrophy phase. I've gone from 205 pounds to 245 pounds, and probably 85% of that was muscle. Obviously, you're going to put on fat when you're eating more and lifting heavier, but that's just part of the process. Now, when you are trying to do the cardio and not lose muscle, you can't focus on the cardio being that problem. All right. You need to focus on hypertrophy when you want to build the muscle. Then you can do the cardio on top of that. If you properly train your body to gain muscle, you don't have to worry about your muscles shrinking when you're doing cardio. Because if you already did your workout, you broke down those muscle fibers deep down into your cells, you don't have to worry about the cardio burning the muscles, because your muscles already been through that phase during your workout. Now for the cardio, your cardio is going to focus on burning as many calories as possible. You have those carbohydrate stores and you have those fat stores. That's what the cardio is going to take from. All right. When you are building muscle, I have 5 key variables to building muscle, or you could say 5 key variables to muscle hypertrophy. One being doing compound movements. Now, when I say compound movements, I'm talking a bench press, a squat, a deadlift, a front squat, anything that is going to use as many muscles as possible to get the movement done. So if you think of a squat, you're literally using every single muscle in the lower half of your body. All right. But you're also using parts of your upper body as well. When you do a squat, a lot of people don't focus on your traps, your back. When you're doing a squat, you just focus, let me throw the bar on my neck and let me focus on growing my legs. No, you need to properly engage your lats and your upper traps so the bar can sit on your back. if you're squeezing your lats and the bar is properly racked on your traps, those muscles are engaged throughout the movement as well. And let's not forget about your core. Core is the biggest thing when it comes to compound movements. No point of doing 1,000 crunches a day. If you're doing compound movements, your core is working. It's simple as that. Your core is always going to work. If you're doing a movement properly, your core is always going to work, regardless of what it is. You could be doing a bicep curl. If you're holding your core tight, your body's not going to sway when you're swinging the weight up to your body. Right. Your core is engaged. So that's something to focus on when it comes to trying to build muscle. Engage all the muscles that you can use during that movement, and you're going to get more out of it. Your muscles are going to work all together, and that's what's going to help you grow, like full on growth. Awesome. Now, number two is,
I have a question for number two. So for people doing body weight squats, maybe they're not there yet with the bar or weight, or maybe they're working out at home and they don't have it. For body weight squats, what is another way that we can incorporate the upper body to focus on getting more of those muscles in?
Yep. So that's actually pretty easy. So there's different terms for the actual exercise, but the most common name for it is prisoner squats. That's what it's called. Yeah. Okay. So your hands are behind your head and you're pulling your elbows back, trying to keep your chest up the entire time. Therefore, when you pull those elbows back, your lats and your traps are now engaged. So that's an easy way. If you don't have access to weights or bands, that's an easy way to incorporate the upper body as well.
Awesome.
And before you do each repetition, you should still focus on bracing your core, because your center of gravity wants to stay as stable as possible when you're doing that squat.
Of course. Awesome. Okay. So that's a really helpful tip.
Yep. So that's number one. And number two is heavier loads. Now, for people that don't have access to having weights and bands, you can simply just change the tempo of your squat. So let's just use the squat, for example, throughout this. When you're doing a tempo squat, instead of just bouncing up and down on a normal tempo, count 5 seconds, control that squat for 5 seconds until you hit that low mark or your 90 degree, whatever your pain is. If you can go full range of motion, that's even way more beneficial because you're getting that full length in the muscle. So controlling the tempo is great for somebody that does not have access to the weights. Now, if you do have access to the weights, obviously the more heavier you go, I'm not saying try to max out every day because that's just going to kill all your muscle gains. Right. You want to progressively add as much weight as you possibly can, or just the minimal amount each week, because your body is eventually going to adapt if you keep the same weights every single day. Now, that's why progressively and strategically add weight so you can challenge your body and overcome that adaptation that it's already stuck in. Right. Now, and when it comes to, go ahead.
I will say that if that is something, if you're listening and that sounds like something that makes you nervous or worries you, first of all, it probably should. Lifting weights is no joke and it can cause serious injury. So if that is something that concerns you, wondering how often should I be maxing out? How much should I be increasing my weight by? Those are things that you need to work with a professional on. I'm a nutrition professional and I don't know the answer to that. And that's something that worries me a little bit. So definitely, if you're listening and that sounds kind of scary, or you're like, I don't even know what that means, reach out. Tony is glad to help. Other fitness professionals are glad to help with that type of thing, but make sure you're always being safe with these things. We want to give you as many tips and options as possible, but we also have to educate you and warn you that, there are great consequences that come with great responsibility, right?
Yep, and I am a victim of that. So I've definitely learned from my mistakes in the past. And even jumping off from that, if you are in that mind state of being scared to add more weight, say you do have access to the weight and you have the bar and you found a comfortable weight that you don't want to push your limit to, go back to what I just said, add a tempo with the weight you already have. That's going to change the adaptation. That's going to overcome that. If you have the weights, then you most likely have access to bands. You can attach the bands to each side of the squat bar and you can add resistance to the up portion of the squat as well. So there's so many different variables when it comes to changing the movement so you can overcome that adaptation, therefore will outcome with growth in your muscle.
Awesome.
So that's number two. Number 3 is going to be the amount of sets that you do. The average set that you find on the internet is going to be 3 sets, 10 reps. So you want to stick to that 6 to 12 rep range for the muscle hypertrophy. And you want to have a minimum of 4 sets. Now, that's going to also not include your warm-up sets. Your warm-up sets also need to be as important and focused on as your working sets. So if you're going to do 4 sets of 8, your 2 first sets are going to be your warm-ups, but you want to make sure you're bracing your core, everything's engaged, so your body can not injure itself. You want to be as aware of the movement as possible. So that's number 3, which is going to be the amount of sets. Minimum of 4 sets if you really want to work on growing your muscles, and the rep range is going to be 6 to 12. Now,
Awesome.
Don't compromise the subsequent set. So that's going to be number 4. All right. You want a shorter recovery. You have these power lifters that do 1 rep, right? And then they take a break and they sit down for 5 minutes, right? If you're trying to grow your muscles, you need to work them. You're not worried about strength, you're worrying about growth. So shorter recovery time, but don't compromise the amount of effort that you're going to put into it. If you have, let's say, 60 seconds rest and your rep range is 10, if you're taking 60 seconds to rest and that next set that you do, you're not getting 10, then you need to alter your rest range so you can get those 10 reps. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yeah.
we've talked about this a little bit before.
Yeah.
I think it was episode 2. You can go back and listen to that, but maybe it was episode 3 with the steady state versus HIIT.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it was. Okay, so see, building off of everything we're learning here, right? Exciting. Just getting my gears turning.
So adjust your rest time so you don't ruin your rep.
Very cool.
All right. Every rep is going to count when it comes to growing your muscle, but also all effort that you put into that rep is going to be even more important. All right. And so that's number 4. Now, last of the key variable is muscle damage. Now, don't get scared when I say that, but when there's 2 different motions, and we're going to use the squat again, you have the concentric motion, which the easiest way to put that is pushing the weight from the ground, away from the ground. That can be any movement. So if you're doing a bicep curl and you're curling the weight up, that's the concentric portion. That's the shortening of the muscle. All right. The eccentric portion, and I can't stress this enough, is the most important portion of an exercise to muscle growth. That eccentric movement, so towards the ground. So if you're squatting, that's you sitting down into that chair, that imaginal chair. All right. That eccentric motion is what's going to create those little microfiber tears in your muscle. Now, people are going to say, oh, I don't want to tear my muscle. No. The science behind your muscle tearing is your muscles are going through that work. They're going under the load, and that you're sore. All right. Your muscles have gone under small microfiber tears. Now, your nutrition, your sleep, your hydration is what is going to help build those muscles stronger from those tears. They're going to imagine the spider web kind of warping together. That's kind of the imagine you want, that creation. So when you're creating damage to your muscles, that eccentric portion, that is what is truly going to grow your muscles. I see a lot of, and especially younger people, they go in, oh, I need a fat pump. I need a big pump. I need to look big. That's great for 3 hours after your workout, but it's that's just pumping blood into your muscles to make it look bigger, but it's not going to stick with you. All right. You're going to get, if you're doing an exercise properly and your muscles are tearing, you're going to be sore for the next few days. If you're getting, I can go to the gym and do arms every single day and get a big pump in my arms, but I'm not sore the next day, which means I didn't do anything to my muscles. They're going to stay the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So I am familiar with the idea of the muscle tearing, the damage there. Because, like if you go on a long walk, or maybe like, I remember, this still happens to me sometimes. You go to the beach for the first time in the summer and you take like a walk down the beach, and then you notice like your calves are sore the next day because it's a different texture and you're using different muscles to have to do a very familiar motion of walking. And so that is those little micro tears. So they happen under very, very normal circumstances. So like you said, don't get afraid of that term. It's something that happens every day through multiple different movements. Um, but I like to think of it as cotton candy when you pull it apart and then adding the nutrition, the hydration, the sleep. It's the cotton candy. So you're adding the volume. It's as you keep it in the same spot, you do the thing over and over again, you twirl around and do whatever it needs to do, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And so that's kind of the same idea as this whole hypertrophy muscle building thing that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Very
Yeah. And so going from the hypertrophy aspect that I just explained, atrophy is a complete like mystery when it comes to the fitness world. You're not, I hear people, I look so small today, I'm losing muscle. No, you're just not activating your muscles to the same intensity that you've had in the past, or you're not, say you don't have enough carbohydrates that are going to make you have that full look in your muscles. All right. Atrophy is very hard unless you have a condition, let's say like sarcopenia, right? Just a progressive degeneration of your muscles as you get older. Now that's going to happen to everybody as you grow older, but not necessarily. If you can keep that same effort, that workload, every time you go into that gym and have that same mentality, you're going to keep those muscles activated and engaged throughout the week, the day, the rest of your life. Now, obviously, if you take a week off, you're going to look smaller probably. You're going to look in the mirror and be like, I'm not satisfied. Why am I losing muscle? Your muscle's still there. It just needs to get back up there again. So you need to fuel it. You need to stay hydrated. Yep. And hypertrophy, the like probably the most beneficial thing is the amount of water that you intake.
Mm-hmm.
The more blood you can carry into your muscles, the nutrients are going to go through your bloodstream into your muscles, and that's what's going to help repair those muscle fiber tears, and it's going to help your muscles grow. That's how it's all going to play a part.
Right. So this is very, very cool. This is one of the areas where fitness and nutrition, I feel like most easily kind of blend together, and you start to see like this is why we offer all of these different things, and why so many things are included in the health and wellness aspect. Because when you're trying to build or maintain muscle, you literally cannot have one without the other. So I just think that is pretty cool. I will say about the atrophy, like he said, your muscle does not just like go away overnight. Okay, it's still there. If you take a week off, most likely you are seeing a bit of added fat gain, adipose stores on your body, which makes your muscles look smaller. But it's because you're not burning as many calories. You're probably still consuming about the same amount. So there are lots of different aspects, but just know that under nearly every circumstance, you are not losing muscle unless you're taking, a very serious long break off, or you have a very serious injury, or you have a very serious disease. Okay. So I have a couple of notes over here, but this is an exciting conversation for me because one of the most common objections that I run into is that people want to, I don't even know if I would say it this way. People have a very, very not proper grasp on protein. It's not coming out so great, but I want you to know that 58% of Americans consume 200% of their daily protein need every single day. That's a lot of protein, friends. Your body does not need that much. And when I say like of your daily need, that's your recommended daily allowance. Like that is what your body needs to not only function, but also do that level of hypertrophy that is safe. So build those muscles, maintain organ function. Like that's a lot of protein. Okay. And so every day compiled over many, many years, this is why we see such high rates of kidney stones, of renal disease, of kidney failure, needing dialysis. It is directly related to the amount of protein you eat. and the quality of protein you eat. So let's get into like the nitty gritty here, and then we can kind of flesh out all the little things. So the biggest thing, like I just said, if you eat, your body will not, essentially cannot use your muscle for energy. So you honestly, it's extremely hard to burn muscle when you are exercising or even just surviving. This is because protein malnourishment almost never comes without overall energy malnourishment, which is kind of what you see in the developing countries where you just aren't getting enough food, period, and your body can't function properly. That is typically the only instance that you will see your body burning muscle as fuel. Okay, so this means you have already burned off all of your carbohydrate stores, which are our main source of energy there. You've burned off fat stores, which is the second source of energy. You've burned off any protein stores that you already have in your body. And then your body has moved on to body fat and then muscle. Okay, so it's like the last step. It really is a survival mechanism. And if you are actually burning muscle, you will notice, it's hard to miss, you'll notice that this happens in third world developing countries. It is the extreme distension of your stomach area. That's what protein malnourishment looks like. So if you don't have that, and then of course you have the very thin arms and legs and chest because there's nothing else there, your body is just eating whatever muscle it has left, and your stomach, your digestive tract can't really digest it and use it, and so it all goes to that stomach area. So it is not common, especially with what we're talking about today. It is a little bit sad, I feel like, that it's so misunderstood, because protein malnourishment and muscle wasting is, like I said, that last ditch effort of survival by your body. And to me, sometimes it almost feels a little underplayed, the seriousness of it, how people just automatically assume that, if they don't eat 3 chicken breasts for every meal of the day, their body's going to start burning their muscle. First of all, that's just very, that's extreme. And like I said, this is a very serious complication. The most common instances where you will see it is, again, in that energy malnourishment in developing countries, cancer patients, anyone who is bedridden for an extended period of time, and it is very common in HIV/AIDS patients as well in those final stages. So if you don't get enough protein, eventually that will happen, but you also have to not be getting enough other nutrients. The most common side effect of you not getting enough protein is simply you losing weight. Muscle does weigh more than fat, and if you are, losing weight, it's probably because you're not having enough protein. This is the most common. I know it sounds like up in the air right now, but I promise it'll all come back in a minute. When I see people that have been struggling for a very long time with losing a specific number of pounds, it 90% of the time comes down to the fact that they've been consuming not enough carbohydrates and too much protein. So this goes back to what we know about these nutrients, okay? Carbohydrates are used for energy. They're used by our brain first and then by our bodies. Protein is used to build tissue. That can include fat stores. It can include the muscle, okay? So we need to make sure that we're balancing all of these things. But please know that if you're listening to this, you are not burning muscle in most cases. And if you are losing a bit of muscle mass, it is not necessarily what you think it is.
It's literally just your cell shrinking.
Correct. So it's not the fact that you need to go and eat a whole bunch more protein. It's again, going back to all of these things being connected, here we come, the full circle moments happening if you tuned out on me for a second. You have to do those eccentric movements. You have to lengthen during your bicep curl. You have to go all the way down during your squat. Okay, you have to have enough water afterwards. You need to get quality sleep. The whole thing comes together. So if I could dispel one myth, I think it would be that we don't get enough protein, because as I mentioned earlier, most Americans get way too much. And if you get too much, here are some fun facts. If you eat too much protein consistently over an extended period of time, you are at a very high risk of developing kidney stones, gout, renal fatigue, and potentially body fat gain. Because again, protein builds tissue, and if you're consuming an excess amount of dietary fat, it will go and build that fat in your body. So those are like my big research points that I need you guys to know on like the science side. So does any of that not make so much sense?
No, it's and yeah, that's the biggest thing. You need the water, you need the proper nutrients and the amount of nutrients. All right. Water, sleep. Your body is literally working 10 times more while you're sleeping than you're awake. Right? That's just simple as that. That's where your recovery is going to come from. Don't be the person that says, "Oh, I got to go to the gym today, but I haven't taken a day off in 3 weeks." If you're not given that time for your muscles to recover, you're not going to go any further than where you're at. It's just plain and simple. And when you go to what Bailey said as we're eating too much protein as Americans, if I see somebody saying I have to eat the same amount of protein as my body weight, I just kind of laugh because they're misguided.
No.
And like somebody, yeah, I want to gain muscle, right? And I'm talking to somebody at the gym, just a guy that goes to the gym, obviously looking at all the online articles and stuff. And he was like, "Oh, you eat how much you weigh?" And I'm right now I'm about 230 pounds. "Oh, you got to eat 230 grams of protein." I'm like, "No." Realistically, I mean, I've made, and if you want my honest and my own transformation, I've put on muscle mass by eating 60 grams of protein a day. All right.
And hear that again, please hear that again, because that's a reasonable number. 60 grams of protein per 230 pounds of body weight. I can't fathom right now eating. If you ate 230 grams of protein a day, I don't think would eat anything literally except for meat. You would have to, I mean, and like ridiculous amounts of eggs. That's just crazy town.
Cholesterol. A lot of cholesterol.
Your arteries, friends, are going to be hurting. Please do not ever do that. The misguided aspect there comes from the actual recommended daily intake for protein. It is 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram
of lean
body mass. Okay. 0.8, not 1.0. And again, it's grams per kilograms, not grams per pound. So that, I honestly would love to look into the history and find out where that arose, because that's not factual. It's not safe. And honestly, my stomach hurts just thinking about that.
I have a question.
Yes.
So you say 0.8 kilograms per kilograms of body weight, right? Now, I've heard, and it makes more sense, obviously, because you want to feed your lean body mass, because your total body weight includes your fat stores as well.
Correct.
Right? So if I'm 230 pounds and I think I'm about 17% body fat, I have about roughly 40 pounds of body fat on me. So my lean body mass is around 170 in that area. And I've heard 0.8 kilograms per lean body mass, because truly your lean body mass is all the muscle that you have.
Correct. So again, that number that I gave is the recommended daily allowance. It also, sometimes you may hear it be called daily recommended intake. DRI or RDA is typically what you see there. The difference is not much. However, that is not speaking in terms of health and fitness so much.
Yeah,
The
that's where I got thrown off. Yeah.
Yes, the recommended daily allowance is typically where I start as a nutrition professional, because most of the people that we're seeing just usually aren't already well versed in health and fitness. They are also looking for help with the fitness side. So you have to start at that safe base level. Once you are to what I would call an above average, or now I forget.
Advanced, I guess.
Advanced, yes. I'm like, it starts with an A. I can't remember the word.
Mhm.
Advanced level, like Tony is, that's when you need to start switching things around, and looking at, okay, where am I at now? We're looking at the lean body mass. We're looking at fat that we need to burn. Like, there are so many more aspects once you get into this advanced level. But at base level, this is what we're talking about. And honestly, most people listening are going to be at that base level. Even if you work out every day, you're pretty lean, you probably have not been nourishing your body properly. If you have, like so many of us, been influenced or carried away by this mainstream media, the articles, the blog posts, the Facebook videos, the ads, the products from people that have no training, no knowledge, no expertise in these fields. So typically what I'm finding is that I almost want to walk it all the way back to ground zero and build up in a healthy way, working on the mindset and the nutrition and the fitness and all the things that go into that, including hydration and sleep, and working up to that point. So if you're looking at the 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, and it typically doesn't vary by too much, because when you divide out that kilogram difference, it does come in to that relatively same range. I will say it can differ greatly depending on, like I said, if you're at that advanced level. And like Tony, he said he is about 170 lean body mass, 230 total weight, which is a good bit of difference. That's why I did not go into math. It's a pretty hefty difference, right? I don't have that much of a difference between my lean body mass and my total body weight, just because I'm not as big, right? Which means that my, total can't be that much more than my lean body. Okay, it's thinking about pouring water into like big and little cups. Okay, it's lots and lots of technical stuff here, but just know, again, to get those specific numbers, you should be following these things that are coming from experts. Okay, so that's where I want you to start if you are looking at getting really specific with how much protein you want to intake on a daily basis. Is that 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. Because the other thing there with the lean body mass, and like, one, it's a lot more calculation, which can lead to human error, we know, and we don't want to be in a space where we are severely undercutting or severely over consuming. And that 0.8 is generally a safe space to be in. However, if you're someone that's experiencing that difficulty getting those last couple pounds off and you're just not quite where you want to be, that's when we start to move into those more specific calculations. And of course, there are other things that need to be accounted for as well. So you are correct, but not for everyone.
Yeah.
So that's a really great question. And again, I just want to throw it out there that you probably, if you're listening to this, are not below that number. You probably have a good margin of overconsumption. And that just being, the traditional American diet what we've been conditioned to believe is normal and healthy. Yeah, so my challenge to you listening today is to cut out a meat protein at one meal every day, or cut it in half. The other thing that I see so often with protein consumption is that we believe, I should hold this and make it a trick question later on a pop quiz or something. We believe that just because it's packaged a certain way means that that's a serving size. And that is not the case at all. A serving size of meat, if you all are going to have your minds blown, a serving size, which is what we base nutrient intake off of, is 3 ounces. Yep, 3 ounces. For those that are not watching the video version of this, Tony just held his hand up and motioned to the palm of his hand. And that is a good visual. So about 3 ounces, about the size of a deck of cards, about the size of the palm of your hand, typically. If you have very large hands, typically not. But the average person, I like to think of it a little bit better as a deck of cards, because that's universal. And typically you have one of those laying around and they're all the same size. If you have a kitchen scale, look for about 3 ounces. You're going to want to look for about 4 ounces of fish or seafood. That's a serving size. So an entire chicken breast, imagine it in your head, is typically not that 3-4 ounce max serving. Really it's 6 ounces max. So double that, which might be a whole chicken breast. But then if you go back to calories, you also have to double those. You have to double the saturated fat and the cholesterol and the sodium from the spices you're adding, all of these things, right? So just keep that in mind. Animal proteins are a very dense source of protein per calories. However, most of us are just over consuming on almost like a gluttonous level, and we don't even know it. So the easiest way to combat that, because I know people are going to come back and be like, well, if I don't eat the meat, then I'm going to be hungry. And that is just also not factual. Protein actually takes up a very small amount of your stomach volume. You want to fill that up with your grains and your fruits and your vegetables, as well as water. That doesn't necessarily give you the nutrients you need, but it can help fill up some of that excess volume, make you feel a little bit more full. This is something we focus on in patients that need to, or people that need to lose an excessive amount of weight, because their stomach has actually been stretched because of the amount of food that they've been shoving in there. You actually have to start to train the volume to come down a bit. The easiest way to do that is with water intake. That is an episode for another day, but that's my challenge to you all. Cut out meat once a day from one meal a day, or for an entire day out of the week. You would be surprised how different you may feel, a little bit more energetic, a little less lethargic, a little lighter, and how you may still actually meet your protein needs if you track it by consuming a balanced portion of vegetables, legumes, all the things that you should be consuming on a daily basis.
And the quality of your protein, like she said, is going to play a big role in how you feel when it goes into the gym.
And
Grass-fed beef.
Please remember also, vegetables do have protein. They don't have as much. A clementine, that's one of my favorite fruits to snack on. It still has protein. It's not a whole lot, but there's some in there, okay? So don't underestimate your other foods. It is relatively easy to get enough protein in a day. And again, I'll say my last piece here. If you're overdoing it on the protein consumption wise, you're actually counterproductive to your work in the gym. So
yeah. So if you go back to, like I said, with the quality of a protein, if you're looking for a steak to eat, right, or a ground beef, look for that 97% lean and that 3% fat. Remember, if you're somebody eating meat for your protein, you're eating what was a live animal at one point. If that animal had a crappy diet itself, that muscle is not going to be good quality. You can relate that to a human being. Obviously, we don't look at it that way. But if I were to go to a deceased human body that ate McDonald's for 40 plus years and I were to cook their muscle, would that be nutritious? No. So if you're looking for chicken, look for the free range chicken. It was raised healthy. There's a lot of substitutions, and I know I'm not a nutritionist, but that is just plain old humanity at the end of the day and survival.
Right. That's actually something we can get into in another episode too. You may be surprised with a lot of marketing tactics and packaging things. However, it's easy to overlook that if you know what you're looking for. So I promise we'll bring you an episode on that eventually. But as Tony just mentioned, look for those better options, right? We know better a little bit, right? If you're looking for that 97% lean, ground beef, steak, whatever, you can do that pretty easily, right? You can also look, there should be somewhere on the packaging a nutrition facts label. If there's not, there is one online on the company website of whichever. So if you're looking for like Purdue chicken, they have it online. Something else you can do is that we offer a resource that has a comprehensive list of almost every food you can possibly imagine and the macronutrient, micronutrient intake for those. So it includes the calories. So you know what you should be looking for. So if you'd like some more information on that, it'll be linked in the show notes. You can also visit our website, www.bewellphc.com, to find that. But again, know what you're looking for. Just be aware. Lots of information in this episode. Take a second and just kind of take it in. Take a deep breath with us. That was a lot of really great learning. Be sure to come back and listen again. I definitely will be listening again because Tony shared some great insights at the beginning, and I had some little fun facts there in the center with, what muscle wasting actually is and how it actually happens. So Tony, any final thoughts or words to the wise for muscle wasting versus atrophy and hypertrophy?
Yeah. So just final notes, please don't overconsume what you really don't need, taking from Bailey's side of the nutrition. And when it comes
not just
to
protein.
not just protein, whatever. And if you want to look at the fitness side of things for the nutrition portion of it, what's your purpose? Are you eating for taste or are you eating for your goal and the end goal, for your functionality, for your physique, for your muscle growth? Pick that too, because sometimes you can't always have both. Yeah, 97.3 ground beef is not going to taste as good as 80% 20. I'll tell you that, because that fat is so good to us because we're used to it. So find that niche and what your actual outcome goal is and take it from there. With the exercising, please do the cardio. Your muscle is a heart as well. You need to do that cardio, right? Obviously, the more cardio you do, the more your respiratory system is going to work, the more blood flow you're going to have. All right. The nutrients that you take from your food is going to go into the muscles that you just damaged. The more sleep and hydration you have, the more those muscles are going to grow. All right. And don't forget stretching at the end, because your muscle fibers tore. Now, if you stretch it, imagine that you're pulling apart a piece of cloth, right? Those fibers are tearing. All right. Now all that food and those nutrients and the water is going to go into that cell and it's going to help it. Now you put more space in that muscle from the stretching to build bigger. All right.
If I'm not mistaken, stretching is eccentric, correct?
No, because you're holding it at a static point.
Okay.
Since you're holding it in one position, you're holding that constant tension. Yeah.
Gotcha. Glad I asked.
If you think, there's stretching, right? Obviously regular stretching. Then you have Pilates, which is a whole complex
Whole nother level.
which includes eccentric movements while you're trying to get a stretch as well. But that Pilates is very complicated and it is a very hard. Don't ever knock Pilates. I give all the respect to anybody that does Pilates because I've done it and I cramped up like 10 times when I was doing it. So
yeah, and even yoga too. He admitted to me before we started this episode that he did a yoga class this week and it was a little bit hard for him. So never be afraid to try those different things. And moving your body in a new and fun way that you enjoy is always going to be a good thing. No matter if it is in that moment building your muscle, it's always a good thing to have fun. Okay. So that's where we'll leave you today. I know this ran a little bit longer than normal, but I hope you appreciated all the added value that we got in there. We will see you guys next time. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to answer them. This was, again, a lot of science, a lot of technical stuff that we know, and we hope that it made sense and helped you learn. But if you still need a little bit more hands-on assistance, we would love to walk you through some specific questions. Tony, thank you so much for sharing your expertise tonight. It was phenomenal, top-notch stuff. We will see you guys next time. Thanks for hanging out with us. Until then, stay safe and stay healthy.
See you guys.
It was our greatest honor to take up space in your world today. Please share this episode to your social media pages and tag us at BeWellHWC. Cheers to you, friend, for choosing better for yourself starting today. It won't be easy, but it'll be worth it. Subscribe to the show and learn how to make healthy less hard, one tip at a time.